Hello and welcome to Pass to Power, the political podcast, our 5th episode, and I'm Matt Cooper.
And I'm Ivan Yates.
Okay, we've lots of things to get through on the agenda today. We're going to be talking about RTÉ, the political danger of the forthcoming referendum, what a Trump presidency could mean for Ireland, the liberalisation of our drug laws, and how we deal with symbols when it comes to a 32-county Ireland and getting Northerners happy with that. And we might talk about David Norris exiting the Seanad as well, and maybe other things will come up as we go along the way. You love talking about RTÉ, though.
Do.
RTÉ, of course, that stands for Responsibility Taken Elsewhere. The board is safe. The Minister, Catherine Martin, has decided, despite the fact that it showed an enormous lack of inquiry about an event that it knew was going on, RTÉ The Musical, and then all of them seemed to have the same excuse, fait accompli when it was presented to them. They all remain in place. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, I do have some inside sources in this regard. My overall position is that RTÉ is the biggest Titanic in the history of the state. And Captain Backhurst and the orchestra is still playing, and they are blithely going to sink without trace within the next 5 years. They are living on the latest transfusion of cash, 56 million, but they are technically insolvent without state support, and it's over. On this specific issue, RTÉ The Musical, first of all, a head did roll. Rory Coveney did take responsibility for it. But
he clearly, though, wasn't the only person responsible.
Totally.
This goes way beyond one individual.
Okay. Well, let's talk. So my experience in dealing, because I would have had about, as Minister, 5 or 6 semi-states from Kielce to the Racing Board, right across and so on. The chairman and the CEO are the only people you invite to Christmas drinks. They're the ones who actually are totally liaising with the department and minister and respond. And everybody else is basically collateral damage. So in this case, these new members of the board were 4 months on the board when this actual decision was taken. The facts and the Grant Thornton report shows that the board was not told about this, did not approve it. And this actually, because we've had mass confusion deliberately from Marty's car to flip-flops, we have evaded the single lesson of the whole worst episode in their history, which is that Moya Doherty, as chairperson of the organisation, and Dee Forbes as CEO, in any commercial organisation, have to bear the primary responsibility. And in this case, what I'm looking at, even despite the redacted elements, and even despite what I'm told is them lawyering up against the GT report, the fact of the matter is culpability, responsibility lies primarily, in my view. It didn't go to the audit committee with Moya Doherty.
Okay, there's a couple of other things, though, that I've seen in relation to this. I think the 5 board members who have been let off effectively, those who were still on the board, who had been there at the time, are very fortunate, because the role of a board is not just literally to nod off on the agenda that has been given to them, is to ask questions about what's going on in the organisation and to find out about something that had a lot of publicity. Why are we doing this? What's the risk assessment? What if this could go wrong? What are the reputational as well as financial issues involved? And then to actually say, well, it's gone too far, we can do nothing about it. And also then not sign off on it or not reject it suggests, I think some of them may have realised there was something askew here. But more important than that, this isn't the worst scandal in RTÉ. Neither was the whole Ryan Tubridy pay affair. Although that was executive dealing with agent, Noel Kelly, and that was a different issue. The real problem in relation to all of that was how it was handled, brought into the public domain, and that's for the current board and even the current chair to answer questions as to the way that was botched when it was actually being disclosed. And even that, again, is not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is bogus self-employment. The idea that the Department of Social Welfare is conducting an investigation into RTÉ over what happened between 2019 and 2021, having already conducted a previous investigation and having negotiated a settlement, that there were 700 people affected by this. 700 people in a state-funded and state-controlled organisation, bogus self-employment. If that happened in the private sector, there would be hell to pay. And you know what's going to happen inside an RTÉ?
And there is a contingent liability.
There is. And who'll pay that?
Well, obviously,
the state will pay it.
To the revenue commissioners. But let's be clear. The fundamental problem is, even in the time that Backhurst has been there as CEO, even his previous tenure in Montrose, the expenditure and the publisher model issues have not been grasped. And that basically the government decided, and this talk about a €15 a month broadband tax.
No, they won't do that. They've already ruled it out.
Will they imperil themselves for those losers in Montrose? Not a chance.
But hold on, there is an issue here, and this goes back. There has been no licence fee increase since 2008. It's been stuck at 160 quid.
And it won't be
despite
going
inflation.
up, Matt.
It won't. I know it won't. But there have been efforts. Noel Curran, a former Director General of RTÉ, made serious efforts to try and have a reform about making sure that RTÉ fulfilled a public service remit, but that money was shared with the commercial sector. And it's been clear since around 2008 that the world's media landscape has changed dramatically. The government has commissioned reports, it has done nothing. So it's now kicking the can down the road to the next government to deal with this. So a situation, rather than actually reforming the licence fee or putting a new structure in place.
Or 900 redundancies. That's what's required. When I see 900 redundancies, I'll believe they're taking this seriously. I believe it's politics and business as usual inside Montrose, and the rest of the issues have been put in the long finger. And this is just another controversy. But in my view, this worst episode over a 5-6 year period has to be laid at the door of two women, Moya Doherty and Dee Forbes.
Okay, but I want to ask you a question, and I say this as somebody who works exclusively in the commercial sector. We do need an RTÉ, though, for public service broadcasting. We can do a certain amount in Today FM. You used to do it in News Talk. We do work together in doing a current affairs programme on Virgin Media. But what the commercial stations offer will not be enough, will it? We do need an RTÉ. But then how much do RTÉ trade off on the things that
Primetime Investigates or something like that?
Only we can do it.
Yeah, no, well, first of all, repeats of EastEnders and so much stuff they do is not public service broadcasting. It's commercial broadcasting. They're the biggest player in the advertising market. They have every advantage. They had a heritage audience. The fact of the matter is, and even seeing Joe Duffy coming out against the cash machine, and I can say this openly because I'm not working in the Bauer Group, the fact of the matter is they begrudge the few shillings that the Virgin Media and News Talk and others have to live off of. And the reality is RTÉ are bullies in the commercial market. And you know what? I actually have no sympathy. And put it like this. The politicians just want this to go away, and it'll be a matter for the next government.
Let's talk about real bullies. Let's talk about Donald Trump and the likelihood that he is going to be returned to the White House as the next president. Likelihood as things stand, I believe an awful lot could change.
What straw are you touching to now?
That events, dear friend, events.
He had 4 criminal trials, right?
Yeah.
He's going to win the Supreme Court appeal on not being on the ballot paper in 2 states. All of that is not going to stop him from being the next president. He has the Republican nomination. He has an 81-year-old in Biden who at any point in time, and sorry, the whole problem here is the lack of succession planning in the Democratic Party. That is the, if Trump gets elected, that is the reason. But put it like this.
Biden's strongest hope of getting re-elected is running against Trump rather than running against anyone else, because as happened in 2020, there will be a lot of people who will look at the idea of Trump becoming president again as appalling and as something that has to be stopped, and they are more likely to come out through clenched teeth to vote for Biden.
I get that point. But the point is this. When I was looking at Biden's sort of soft launch of his campaign, and he said, the reason I'm standing again is to stop this menace of Trump. Sorry? The most important reason you're standing is not what you're going to do for people on housing, on standards of living, on the economy or whatever. To actually cede to your opponent that you are actually reacting to them is crazy campaigning. You've got to have a positive message of why people should vote for you, whether it be young or old or whatever, healthcare or whatever. But the fact of the matter is this, saying like that's a bit like someone saying, I'm not Jeremy Corbyn. You know what I mean? It'll get you so far, but it mightn't get you over the line.
I see, though, your old political mate Phil Hogan was out this week warning about the dangers for Ireland if Trump gets elected. I know there are a lot of people who say, why are you so obsessed with Trump? It's over there. It doesn't matter to us. Well, it matters for all sorts of reasons. And this trend towards autocracy, which is very, very dangerous for democracy globally, if that's the way the United States going, like a third world tin pot dictatorship. But if we just be more selfish as to the economic consequences for Ireland, Phil Hogan was interesting on the possibility of a trade war, and that we would get very badly caught up in that, particularly our pharma industry.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can absolutely detach Ireland's interest in this. I think since JFK, Obama and Reagan pretended to be Irish, but actually Biden is the most Irish president. Everything about his DNA, even the way he talks about the Brits, he is bona fide. So we're not going to have someone in the
White...
You
left out John F. Kennedy.
No, I said no, since JFK. Since JFK,
okay,
no, absolutely. So the point I'm making is that absolutely in Ireland's interest, Biden is a plus. But if you look at Trump's agenda, first of all, I keep saying the most economic important fact in Ireland is the 24 billion of corporation tax. If you take Apple, Microsoft and all of those, Google and so on, it's 24 billion. Now, as you just said, right, first of all, he's going to lower the corporation tax rate in the US from 25 to 15%, which is the same rate that they now pay in Ireland. Secondly, he's going to reintroduce an amnesty to bring the dollars home, which will actually make boardrooms think about coming home. And that is absolutely essential. And the third thing, which you've just alluded to, is the reintroduction of protectionism, import tariffs. And on every count, this imperils our FDI, hardcore, juicy, golden geese laying all these eggs. The other thing that I think is probably the most significant is what will he do if he gets in about Zelensky and Ukraine. I think Europe is going to be, he's almost going to withdraw from NATO. He's going to have an isolationist policy, and Europe are actually going to have their own defence policy.
The problem here is exacerbated by the fact that one of the major scandals of his previous presidency was when he tried to put leverage on Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden's son's involvement in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And, some of this has been deliberately overblown by Biden's critics. But let's just take the Zelensky thing. That is clear as well that one of the things Trump tries to say is he doesn't want to get involved in what's going on in the rest of the world. He's an isolationist.
Which goes down well with working class Americans.
Absolutely. So
they don't want to be the world's policeman.
No, they don't. So if you have a situation and he did threaten before to reduce America's contribution to NATO, didn't go ahead with it. He's going to do an awful lot of things which must have Vladimir Putin licking his lips in anticipation.
No doubt. And that creates and also China. China will be licking their lips, all of which will enfeeble Europe.
But then where do Ireland fit in this? Because we very much are determined to remain not part of NATO, to remain neutral. There's been always a degree of hypocrisy in relation to this. We're happy enough to effectively shelter under the NATO umbrella without making a contribution towards it.
So you want to join NATO?
I didn't say that. I'm just highlighting. I'm highlighting the reality of the situation.
But you're not following your own logic.
What I'm saying is that we will come under increasing pressure at the European Union. That if we're part of the European Union, we will be expected to be part of NATO as well. And only this week,
so no free ride. Is that what you're saying?
Even this week, Turkey has agreed for Sweden to become involved. More and more, countries in Europe who had avoided going into NATO are getting in. But we're not a superpower.
A few tin pot tanks from Ireland and Kildare is not going to change the world.
That's not.
It's not going to have Putin losing sleep at night.
That's not actually. And I think where the pressure will come on us will be for cybersecurity. Because wars will be fought not just with armaments, but with cybersecurity. And given our role within the EU, and given the location of all of these American tech giants in Ireland, we will come under enormous pressure. And things like, we've always sort of done it in the Irish way, the backhanded way, such as making Shannon Airport available for flights.
Which I don't have a problem with. Do you have a problem with that?
I'm only highlighting the issue without expressing an opinion.
I'd say let them drop in, let them drop out, as long as they pay their dues. Can I say
the point is, we will be put under pressure by the EU.
And I think that isn't a problem. But I don't think you're going to see Irish people being conscripted and going to fight in the European army. But there's one other elephant in the room which nobody has mentioned, irrespective of Biden or Trump, but I think especially with Trump. The elephant in the room in American politics is their national federal government debt is $34 trillion. It's 123% of the GNP. And they falsified the figures because everyone else's GNP, including Japan, a debt ratio, includes pension liabilities. Canada and America took that out. There is the real chance that America could default on their debt.
Well, they just print more dollars. It's the strongest currency in the world. They just keep printing money.
That isn't a kind of permanent solution. That is a sticking plaster solution. But I honestly think there's not enough analysis in this whole thing. Is any of the candidates promising to curb the debt?
Okay. You know what day March the 8th is, don't you?
Tell me.
Ivan, come on, a progressive man like yourself.
I'm hard set to remember the 17th of March.
It's International Women's Day, and that's why that is why we're having the referenda on the March the 18th, changing Article 41 of the Constitution, particularly the provision.
So are you voting yes or no?
I never state which way I vote in anything. I'm strictly neutral. And even
you're going to get blisters on your arse from that fence you're sitting on.
Does not know
the barbed wire must be cutting
voted.
through your jeans at this stage.
Oh, see, I'm still a working broadcaster, and I can't express an opinion one way or the other when I would be hosting debates on the removal of one aspect of Article 41 and the change to others. The Article 41, the bit that's been removed, I think is often wrongly referred to as the reference to women in the home. It's more detailed than that, but yet the argument is developing. There's a culture war starting to develop in relation to this. Is this a real mistake by the government to belatedly go for the removal of this clause, which has been debated for the last 30 years, and you must have been in Cabinet at a time when this was discussed, to finally do it at a time when, unfortunately, the so-called culture wars are flourishing globally, and this might give people a foothold in Ireland using this as a wedge issue?
Well, despite the inconvenience and the vicissitudes, the government's job is to govern. And absolutely, I think there's an element to tokenism, doing it on International Women's Day and so on. But in fairness, I actually, because you told me you're going to talk about this, there are 4 changes that are happening, but you'll get 2 ballot papers, one to Article 41 and one to Article 42. And there's 2 elements to this. One is to delete the offending woman in the home thing, and of course,
which is not the exact expression.
Exactly. And you know
but it's a useful shorthand.
Absolutely. And look, you know, the Constitution was put together in 1937. We had an unthinkable nowadays marriage ban, where if a woman got married, she had to quit the civil service.
But that wasn't a constitutional issue. No, and in fact, it was removed in legislation without requiring a constitutional amendment.
So the point is, there's history here, and this needs to be rectified.
Sorry, the history is Archbishop McQuaid co-wrote the Constitution with Eamon de Valera. And there's a certain degree...
And you saying he's a misogynist?
He was.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was about putting women in their place.
Were both of them misogynists?
Probably.
Right. So I remember having a discussion about this. I don't know if you remember Senator Joe O'Toole. He was the famous teachers' union leader who became the boss of ICTU and actually famously said that benchmarking was like going to an ATM machine. Right. But Joe, I developed a friendship with Joe, and he has a boat on the Shannon, which I've never gone on. But he said to me, he said, a lot of this feminist agenda misses the point. And I can actually relate to, because I'm married 38 years to Deirdre. Every single important decision, how many kids we'd have, when we'd have them, where we'd send them to school, not to speak of every aspect of our home, is it her decision. And he made the point to me.
You're a weak man, are you?
No, sorry. I have to pay to keep the show on the road, but the point
that sounds...
No, that's just true. That's my role.
Sorry,
but
fair to say, Deirdre worked all her life as a teacher, didn't she?
No, I wish she did. But the point is this, she's not working now and she's eligible. But leaving that bugbear aside, he made the point, when he was brought up in Kerry, the most influential people in a community, in a family, were actually women. And I think it degrades women to reduce them because of their primary role in the whole home and their primary parenting role. That's not important. You know the old saying, she who rocks the cradle rules the world. So that's the first thing. I don't accept a lot of the feminist stereotypes about this. But we have now a situation that women at work earn more than their husbands, and the stay-at-home factor is becoming more fluid. So I am going to vote yes to both. I'm not going to be beset, because I remember this. The likes of you, smart shock jocks on the radio and all these journalist types, there came up a simple referendum to give the Oireachtas more powers to have inquiries, because we'd had really expensive tribunals, and it was a no-brainer of common sense. And Michael McDowell and all the AGs said, oh my God, there'll be people under the bed and people attacked in their home. And these AGs convinced people to vote no. It was beaten, I think it was around 2010, by 116,000 votes, and it was a wrong-headed decision. So everyone who tries to bounce me into, it could have this implication that no one ever thought of, and it's a leap into the dark and the unknown. Look, these trouble blazers need to be disregarded, and let's just do the sensible thing. I know it's inconvenient to go into the ballot paper. I would have had it the same day as the other elections, but let's just do it.
Hold on. Is there not an issue in relation to Article 42 and this definition of a durable relationship?
Well, explain. What's your problem? I know what a durable relationship is.
Is it? Is it like ours in this programme here?
No, it is not so durable. No, that wouldn't qualify, I can assure you. A durable relationship where there's a level of commitment, whether it's to paying a mortgage, whether it's to rearing a kid, and you know what? It can hit a rock on the road, but I think I know what a durable relationship looks like, whether it's same-sex or whatever, when I meet it.
Okay, but you think that's a firm enough definition?
I trust judges to not dance on the head of a pin and make common sense solutions to that.
Which we had only this week in relation to a social welfare claim. There was a couple with 3 children. They were not married. She died. He claimed the widower's pension. He was denied it. He had to fight to go to the Supreme Court, but he got it.
And it's a correct decision.
But it had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to make a correct decision.
I accept that. So the point is this: we'll have all these naysayers out there, but fundamentally people have got to rely on, is this an improvement or a retrograde step? And on balance, put it like this: the world got on fine with the, Constitution as it is. It's maybe overstated, but look, now that we're faced with a choice, let's make the right one.
Okay, we will come back, I think, nearer to the date to talk more about the issues involved and the politics of how it plays. Actually, I thought the most significant thing this week was the decision by both Sinn Féin and the Social Democrats to vote yes. So they're not playing politics with it to try and embarrass the government. So I think that's going to help enormously the potential for this to actually be passed, albeit with a certain degree of arguing, especially as broadcasters, we're going to be required to give 50-50 balance.
Which is rubbish. Like, do you ever hear such a nonsensical thing? Like, where you have an issue, this obligation to be fair actually means every headbanger is going to walk into the Last Word studio. You still haven't plugged the book this week, but the point about it is this, that this is an invitation for chaos. And that put like this, I get the point. Is it the McKenna judgment that you're so in favour of that brought that about, was it? The McKenna judgment?
Are you making an assumption I was in favour of?
No. And you said the significance of the McKenna judgment was to mean this even-handed approach. Sometimes common sense is a one-way street.
Which also makes it at times very, very difficult to get people on both sides to be available for debate, or has left them one or two.
But it gives oxygen to things that don't make sense.
Yeah. But I'll tell you one, of course, referendum that we had, which was defeated, and I think was a great shame that it was defeated, was the abolition of the Seanad. I know you want to speak about David Norris.
You think it should have been abolished?
Absolutely, because wouldn't it have been great that when David Norris retired with his usual rhetorical flourish this week, and I have to say, I think David is a very entertaining individual.
He's a national treasure.
And has done an awful lot of good. Well,
cut him a bit of slack there.
Well, sorry, the people of Ireland decided. The people of Ireland decided a little bit differently when given the opportunity to elect him president in 2018.
That doesn't take it. Look, not look what we ended up with. But I leave that for another day.
Sorry, 2011.
But the point is this: whether he would have made it a good president or not, I don't know. But the truth of it is, he has added to the gaiety of the nation. He has done the state some service in relation to LGBT rights.
Sorry, but the point about it, through the legal process.
Absolutely.
Do we actually fund the Seanad to add to the gaiety of the nation, to allow some people to either build up their political careers or to give them a semi-retirement home, to indulge themselves in rhetorical flourishes? And the reason why I have never voted in a Seanad election...
Because you're a graduate. Yes.
I'm a graduate of UCC, which means I'm eligible to vote. But I haven't voted, and the reason I haven't voted is the whole idea is a nonsense that, first of all, you had to be a graduate of only a certain limited number of universities, not other third-level institutions. But you know what? Why should a third-level graduate have a vote and everyone else not have a vote?
Sorry, that is undemocratic. But as it actually happens, when I think over the last 40 years of what senators made an impact, I would have to say it was nearly always the university panel senators, whether it was Fergal Quinn, whether it was Joe O'Toole and different people. The truth is that
Shane Ross.
Shane, I'd include even people I disagree with it from time to time. One of the worst ever ministers for transport. He was indolent and he was lots of things. But the point about it is this:
indolent's a bit much. No,
lazy is another more appropriate word.
No, I would contest.
No, but he's bright. I'll give him that. I don't have that problem with his intellect is very strong. But I put it like this: if you were working in the RDS and see how long he sat on the proposal. It actually was a 16 million proposal to redevelop it. It just sat on his desk, and it's going to end up costing 40 million. He's to blame. So, but that's a digression. The Senate, the problem with the Senate is that the majority of them are political hacks that are either former TDs that have lost their seat and need an income, or a nursery for people who are going to...
You're repeating my argument.
Sorry, don't throw the baby and the bathwater out. The fact that it is that in majority doesn't mean that it serves some purpose. And just mark my words, one of the interesting things about the Senate, which is a rarely used power by the Taoiseach of the day, is that a senator can be appointed to the cabinet. So, or a cabinet minister. James Doog, one of the innovations Garrett introduced, it was very unpopular within the party, but it actually brought someone a heavyweight as Minister for Foreign Affairs, albeit for a short time. Pippa Hackett is now a junior minister, appointed as a senator to be a junior minister of agriculture. Mark my words, one of the most interesting developments this week was Michelle Gildernew being put forward. So she's a Stormont MP. She's a former Minister for Agriculture. She represents Fermanagh South Tyrone. And she is now running in the Midlands Northwest constituency. And, you know, she's the only candidate who will get elected. So what I'm now looking at in my world of Mary Lewis Taoiseach, she could appoint, and at that stage there could be an administration up north, Jerry Kelly, Minister for whatever, Justice in the North, a Minister for Justice in the South. Well, not that Fianna Fáil would agree to that, but Minister for whatever. And actually, that is the type of thinking that Sinn Féin is actually really looking at. How they can sort of bring about a Trojan horse of United Ireland by people having dual ministries. So I would say watch this space, but I think the Senate is an opportunity to bring into politics people who would never get elected to the Dáil. And on balance, I think they add to the knowledge, the teasing out, the filtration of legislation. And look, yes, it's a bit of a trinket, but I think I would not be in favour of getting rid of it.
Okay, well, let's come back to this issue, though, of the North, because I did actually intend asking you about this Irish Times opinion poll that was done in relation to the potential for United Ireland, and if we did have a United Ireland, whether we would join the Commonwealth or whether we would change our national flag, change our national anthem, things like that, to be accommodating of those of a different political disposition from the North who would be joining the United Ireland. And it's
what did this poll show?
Well, it was actually really interesting in a couple of things. One of the things, first of all, is that I'm sort of surprised how the discussion of a United Ireland has ebbed a little bit from how strong it was a couple of years ago. It was developing a certain degree of momentum and now seems to have dropped down the political agenda. And even Sinn Féin seem reluctant to make it clear that it's its number one aspiration. They keep talking about housing and health and now immigration, the things that will help get them elected. But I suspect that as soon as Sinn Féin are in power in the Republic, they will then, once in office, start claiming a mandate to push for United Ireland, although that may not have necessarily be the reason that some people would have voted Sinn Féin. Anyway, this study by the Irish Times did something quite interesting. I'm not going to get into the mechanics and complications of it.
Basically, they were against the tricolour, is that it?
Well, sorry, it was a question of how you phrased the question. The Commonwealth one was fascinating because they took sample groups north and south of the border for discussion. And if you said to them, the Commonwealth is part of the British royalty, it's led by King Charles, it's for the ex-colonies, imperial, all the rest of it, then people reacted badly against it. But if you pointed out, I think it's 53 members.
No, so there's 56 members. 36 of them are independent republics.
Absolutely. So they've elected presidents like us. So if all of those countries are part of it, why couldn't we be it? I mean, could we go from Michael D. Higgins, when he retires as president of Ireland, could become president of the Commonwealth?
Well, that won't happen anyway. No, I think he's facing an end game. And
okay,
look,
but the point is, I suppose, it's how you phrase the question.
No, absolutely.
But there was two things that really jumped out: the hostility of unionists, and it was actually interesting as well. Something that I wouldn't be particularly comfortable with: this automatic assumption when it comes to the North. You're Protestant, ergo you're Unionist, you're Catholic, therefore you're Nationalist. When I'd imagine that religious observance in the North, while it might be somewhat stronger an attachment than it is in the South, shouldn't be defining as to your politics. But so in the North, they didn't like the tricolour, they don't like shamrock and stuff. I don't think they got
No,
too much.
they didn't have as big a problem with the shamrock as they did the tricolour.
Okay, down here we have a problem with the red hand, even though the red hand is associated with loyalist terrorism. It's also used by the GA in Ulster. It just struck me, what accommodations and changes do we have to make? And bring your religion into it, given that you were one of the first or one of the rare Protestants in
Church
the
of Ireland,
during your time. I mean, how do you feel about the tricolour, the shamrock, the Commonwealth, all of those things? And do you feel, as many unionists seem to feel, they would be discriminated against in a 32-county Ireland? Did you ever feel, as a Protestant, discriminated against in this republic?
Well, when I was in my early 20s as a backbench government TD, round about 82, I was approached to go on the Church of Ireland Synod, which is made up of lay people and bishops, which is the ruling body of the Church of Ireland North and South. And I kind of say, why am I on this? You know what I mean? But I actually didn't make much of a contribution, did it for about 2 years, but I observed the people from the North. And you know what I found? And this is a Southern Protestant perspective. Southern Protestants are dwindling. They were always max 5% or whatever, and they're pretty live and let live people. I found the Northern Protestants, but Presbyterians would probably be worse, that they were more denominational than they were Christian. And you know what? I didn't like them. I didn't like them at all, insofar as that they were more concerned. Oh, is this less Britishness, or is this whatever? And there was a culture of domination and so on. And I think the unionist community have been really badly represented. They
choose their representatives.
Oh, absolutely. They're entitled to. But you take the latest hiatus with the DUP refusing to have any governance in Northern Ireland. Whether you resent the fact the IRA bombed you or shot you, or whatever, RUC and all that troubles baggage, in the here and now, they have an obligation to go into government. And basically, they don't want a Tague, they don't want a Mick, they don't want a Catholic as their First Minister. Get over it. The demographics are going to be clear. On the other hand, what accommodation would we make? And I cannot see Northern Unionists sitting in Dáil Éireann. I can see two separate dual parliaments and them working closer together, both being in the single market. But the elephant in the room here, Matt, wake up, whether it's 16 billion or 20 billion sterling, it is a public sector economy, the 6 counties. It cannot sustain itself, and I don't see any plan that it can. And you know what? There's no way we're going to write a cheque for that amount of money.
And also, how do we persuade them all to join with the Republic if particularly Sinn Féin keeps saying the Republic is a basket case? And do we believe that by putting the two of them together, that automatically
they only believe
the merger becomes stronger?
It's a basket case because of these establishment parties.
Yeah, but hold on. You're still getting away from the questions I asked you. And that is, should we, if there was to be a united Ireland, which is still probably quite a way off, but might be quicker than we think, should we join the Commonwealth?
No problem with that. On the basis that if it gives us a bit more trade with Nigeria, go for it.
And then would you change the flag? Would you change the anthem? No. Keep the
I think green and white is the white in the middle between the two factions.
Between the green and the orange.
But sorry, I'm actually not saying that whether it's 800, 750,000 unions should be shoehorned into a republic. I'm against that. But I do believe that we can have a dual administrative system that maybe is funded in a new way, that maximises trade north and south, that maximises the island's economic possibilities, that has common welfare and health standards. You know, you take something like if someone from Donegal wants to get treatment in the Derry Hospital for Paediatrics, like all that kind of common sense stuff needs to be done. But the point is this, if you look at the major change in my lifetime, the Good Friday Agreement, 1998. Have the peace walls, dividing in North Belfast, Protestant and Catholic, been taken down?
Oh God, there's more of them.
Exactly, that's my point. Has denominational education become, interdenominational? No. The truth is the bitterness, the bigotry and the sectarianism has not healed in the last 25 years.
Would you like them to be part of United Ireland?
Put it like this, I'm partitionist. I've no apology to saying that,
How could you be partitionist? Would you vote against United Ireland in a referendum?
Put it like this, if it was going to cost me 20 billion in a heartbeat, yes.
Do you think many people think like that?
Well, put it like this, they mightn't say it, but they'd be thinking it. If they said...
Would you not in a referendum have the emotional attachment to the idea of the reunification of our island, the 32 counties all at one again?
No, so what I'm interested in is the standard of living of people, their jobs prospects, their economic prospects, the happiness to coexist, rearing their families. These are the basic things of life,
Would that not be better?
emblems.
Would that not be better provided for in the 32-county republic?
Well, sorry, if that is the ultimate evolution, and that does give that better solution, and the sum of the parts is more, absolutely. But in the here and now, and I'm 64 now, my perspective on this is that it's going to cause more problems. But I can see a situation where you could have a two-state approach and the northern state would not necessarily be 100% British. But who is going to pay for it is the kernel of the problem.
Okay, I want to move on to the drugs that don't work. Anyway,
I hear at elite dinner parties in Ranelagh and adjoining areas in Dublin 6 that on a Friday night, instead of passing around the cognac, they pass around the cocaine. Is this true? Because I don't live in that. I don't swim in that pool.
I don't know. I don't know anyone in Ranelagh myself.
Oh, your denial of responsibility and knowledge is incredible.
I have never seen anyone pass around the cognac. And I'm probably,
well, that's not a crime.
I've actually probably gotten to an age where I used to, in the Celtic Tiger era, observe cocaine being widely used. I suppose now the fact that I'm older, my generation doesn't use it for fear of the health consequences of it. Although I do hear of people of my age who do, and I think they're absolutely insane to be risking their own health by taking it. And also would have an issue that you are effectively funding the drug gangs if you are starting to buy them.
But you don't smoke and you rarely drink. I mean, like your pristine standard of health and service, it's just beyond most people's. But my Garda friends tell me that the younger generation don't drink alcohol the way I drink alcohol and my generation drinks alcohol, with the exception of yourself. Secondly, that you can actually visibly see lads going to the toilets and they come back and their eyes are bulging.
And sorry, this is all over Ireland.
It's ubiquitous.
This
absolutely.
is not a Dublin 6 issue for dinner parties, as you said. This is a major issue. I have friends who are very involved in the GAA in rural Ireland, and they've had major issues with their teams training hard during the week and then after a game on a Sunday going out, and it's not just for the few pints, it's the lines of Coke as well.
And it's the high of their choice.
Yeah.
And sorry, it is so freely available. So we come to this report. What does it say?
Yeah, this has been a very interesting Citizens' Assembly, yet another Citizens' Assembly, which has become...
Well, can I say, I was a big sceptic of Citizens' Assembly, followed by an Oireachtas committee. And it actually has, I have to change my mind on this, it has actually found things that either politicians wouldn't care about because there wasn't enough votes in it. It actually has provided a modus operandi for complex issues to be changed.
It has. So this Citizens' Assembly on drug use was chaired by Paul Reid, the former head of the HSE and one of the central figures in our COVID response as well. And between last April and October, it undertook a very, very serious piece of work. I think actually he and everyone else involved in the Assembly deserves a lot of credit for the time that they put in at weekends. They brought so many people into them between doctors, Gardaí, health workers, but very, very importantly as well, those who have been affected by drug addiction, which isn't just the users themselves, but their families. They heard mountains of evidence. And they have done something which is quite interesting. Now, it's in two legs. One is that very narrowly they rejected the legalisation of cannabis, which of course has happened in the United States and in Canada and other parts, by one vote. So that left the government off the hook, because if they voted gone the other way, then suddenly the government and the Oireachtas would have been under pressure that it didn't want, as to allow for the legalisation of cannabis. But what it has done and recommended is that you would have the decriminalisation of possession for personal use. So if you've got a big bag of Coke that you're giving to other people or you're selling on, yes, that's still a criminal offence. If you have a small sachet for yourself, or if you have a lump of grass or a bit of pot, whatever, then you get a caution of some kind, or well, you actually don't even get a caution. You don't have a legal thing hanging over you. You're sort of moved towards getting help. Now, there's a few things in relation to that. I'm not sure where the help will be provided, because it's all very aspirational. Where are all the social workers, health workers going to be? The usual thing, we might provide the budget, but how long might you actually be waiting before you actually
the
get that help?
detoxing and the methadone is fairly straightforward to provide,
That's for other types of drugs, and that's fine. We're talking here a little bit, I'm talking more about the cannabis. But there were an awful lot of professionals went and argued strongly against the decriminalisation, that as soon as you leave a little bit more leeway, people might be more inclined to use. Not as much as with legalisation, but still, if you feel there's going to be no impact on you if you're caught in possession of drugs, you might be able to do it. And the problem is, cannabis is not harmless. There's plenty of evidence, particularly in younger people, that it can do enormous damage, psychotic damage and the rest of it. And we have to be really cognizant of that as well. It's not the harmless drug that a lot of its advocates actually say it is. And further to that, one of the reasons why I think the legalisation thing has merits to it, ironically, is that at least you can regulate them. You can regulate the dosage size, you can regulate what goes into it. Too many people in the illegal market are buying drugs. They do not know what they are consuming. So this cocaine could be laced with rat poison. The cannabis that they're getting could be 20 times the strength of what was available when I was in my 20s. In the black. And particularly now because it's been grown industrially in hothouses in Ireland. This is a very complex matter. But sorry, the key thing is Leo Varadkar has now said it's a public health issue rather than a criminal one. Very important. Big change. Big change from Michael McDowell as minister in 2006. He stopped the Gardaí when they wanted to do something along these lines. And a big change even from 2019 when this was being proposed, decriminalisation. And although he didn't speak publicly about it, the understanding was that Charlie Flanagan, as Justice Minister, was very much against the idea of decriminalisation.
Well, my take on this, because drugs have been around, I remember when Pat Rabbitt was appointed, to chair a special subcommittee when I was in government on drugs and did a lot of work, because in Tala, in his constituency, a big issue. My Pavlovian response to always this is any concessions, any legalisation, any decriminalisation, these are gateway drugs. You're actually playing the Kinahan's game here, and even if you're regulating it, they will gateway on to worse drugs. Secondly, you're conferring a level of approval. Like if we had smoking again, would you legalise it? I don't know. And therefore people would say it's okay to take it because it's not a criminal offence. First thing about this report. In the space of about 40 years, there's very few public servants have actually impressed me. My former Secretary General of the Department of Agriculture was superb, Michael Dowling. Met a few CEOs in local government in Wexford were outstanding. Paul Reid is right up there with one of the best. I have called the COVID cover-up, slated the inquiry in terms of slating NEFID and slating people in the Department of Health. I cannot speak highly enough about Paul Reid. I've saw him in Fingal Council. I've seen him just the way he gets people on the ground on his side, the way he listens, his leadership style. He went through the mother of all shit shows, which was COVID on top of the cyber attack. And the reality is it probably burnt him out somewhat. He was commuting from Carrick-on-Shannon. So first of all, if Paul Reid says this is a good idea, you have me sort of at hello. So secondly, I think this is actually the lowest hanging fruit of this whole issue of legalisation, supply and so on. It is just saying, if you have a drug addict in Finglas and is 14 years of age, how do you treat that person? Do you put them into a revolving door of criminal justice, juvenile justice, or do you treat it as a health problem? And I actually think we should do this. I actually think they as you rightly said, the more challenging things that are more controversial. But to me, this is actually the right thing to do.
It's a sensible approach to drug harm.
And to give these people hope, because they will die if they stay on the route they're on.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens though, because there may even be elements within the government who mightn't actually want to go down the decriminalisation route.
That's the biggest story of the week.
But hold on, they will actually get cover from the fact that the Citizens' Assembly. This is what the interesting thing about the Citizens' Assembly is, though, that it is giving a little bit of cover for the government to deal with controversial issues. So anything.
But it allows a constructive milieu in which they can be discussed, as opposed to making them a political football.
True, but what also happened with the hearings on drug use is it's actually interesting if you look at all the people who made presentations. The sort of the experts who are distrusted now by a lot of people, but as I mentioned, people in health services, doctors, psychiatrists, the Gardaí, they were all expressing more caution, whereas the other people are the people on the assembly just need to be dealing more with the reality of the situation, the reality of what they see in life in Ireland. And people use drugs, and we've got to find a way to deal with the downsides of when that happens.
Before we go, in the real world which operate, which is the elections, right? A lot of the selection conventions for Europe are being held first week of February. And this is starting to... There was a poll out this week of who are going to be our 14 MEPs. Now, actually, it was done by the European Council on Foreign Relations, who don't know the difference between people for profit and social democrats and independents and so on, and Claire Daly. But some interesting things. Fianna Fáil, I think, will get 3 seats, believe it or not. Barry Andrews, the least likely. Barry Cowan, certain. Billy Kelleher, sense. This actual poll said that Fianna Fáil would get significantly less votes than Fine Gael, who are down 8%. And actually, Fianna Fáil would get 3 seats, but Fine Gael would get 2, which speaks to the problem of Mairead McGuinness. You know, Mairead McGuinness not standing creates a complete hole.
Sorry, where will Fine Gael get the 2 seats?
Well, sorry. First of all, Sean Kelly is certain to get elected. And sorry, a name to note.
Okay, without sounding ageist, he's not quite as old as Joe Biden or Donald Trump, but he's well into his 70s.
He has the GA sewn up in Munster. I thought you was one of the worst goalkeepers in the history of Cork football would know that he has the GA sewn up.
I know that, but that's not my question.
He's Kerry sewn up, and because Deirdre Clune isn't standing, he has Fine Gael sewn up.
At that age, should you be retiring from active politics?
What age is that? What age is he?
He's 72, I think.
Okay. Well, put it like this. Good luck to him. I'll give you a name that you haven't heard of who's going to be an MEP in the next election in the Ireland South. Senator Paul Gavin is from Limerick, and he is going to be elected as Sinn Féin MEP. Sinn Féin have been quite clever. They've gone for a one-candidate strategy. We spoke about Michelle Geldoniou, but this is starting to hot up.
And Lynn Boylan will get her seat back in Dublin.
She will. And the interesting kind of thing is Breed Smith. Because why would Breed Smith not be standing in the door? I actually interviewed her recently, and she's as fiery and as feisty. She's always given out about me, but you remember back in the day.
But you get on very well, though, don't you?
Well, put it like this, we slag each other, and it works well for both of us. But the point about it is this: she sees through the pantomime. I think she is very electable, and that I think
the Clare Daly seat.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. So I'm really fascinated about. So Kieran Cuff, it could be Kieran Cuff's seat, but I think she has a chance. But these polls.
What about your fellow county man, Mick Wallace?
Yeah, he'll get elected.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I do think he'd get elected. Don't mind what I say. First thing you look for in an MEP, name recognition. He still has it. Mick's a boyo.
Okay, we will leave it there, and we'll see if your predictions work out. I wonder how much money you're going to be putting on those closer to the date. That is the 5th episode of Path to Power. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe so that the next episode comes up automatically on your feed. You press a button on the app, basically. And that app might be Spotify, it might be your Apple podcast app, or you can go to...
But you can access them online. What's the difference between a subscriber and just accessing it online?
Because it comes up automatically for you in your feed.
All right.
So it'll drop into you and you'll be reminded that it's there.
I knew there was a reason you were paid the big bucks.
Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Please recommend to a friend as well if you have liked it. So until the next week, from me, Matt Cooper...
And me, Ivan, goodbye.